One of the many elements or stories, and one quick one that we also talk about and that I talk about, there's a certain amount of luck. Does anybody believe in luck? Just raise your hand. Who believes that some people are luckier than others, right? So I have a friend who's just an unlucky guy. Just an unlucky guy. He's smart. He went to the Wharton School of Finance. He's a brilliant guy, but he's always been unlucky. And no matter what happens, it just works that way. And he never really succeeded. And you'll find when you become very successful, the people that you will like best are the people that are less successful than you. Because when you go to a table, you can tell them all these wonderful stories and they'll sit back and listen. Does that make sense to you? Okay? Always be around unsuccessful people because everybody will respect you. Do you understand that? Anyway, but this guy, he had a thing, and he was just like struck. He was unlucky. And no matter what he did, I call him injury bound, or he was just always something would happen. So he'd be injured. I say, what happened? I broke my shoulder. How did you break your shoulder? Are you a football player? He goes, no, I slipped, I went down the stairs. So he's in the hospital, and he's recovering in Long Island, and he comes back, and he's being driven back, and again, he's always injured. He's injury prone. You know the expression? Some people are injury prone. Is anybody in this room injury prone? Don't raise your hand. I don't even want to see it. Don't do it, because you'll convince yourself. Stand up back there. Are you really injury prone? Well, you're a big, strong guy. Are you a football player or something? Huh? You are? Come on. Okay, here's what you do. Tell yourself you're not injury prone. Sit down, okay? Look at the size of that guy. How can he be injury prone? Looks like he's on the Green Bay Packers. I mean, give me a break. But this guy was totally injury prone. No matter what happened, totally injury prone. And he'd always be ill. I'd call his wife and she'd say, oh no, he's very sick. What's wrong with him? And he said, tell me something. I'd say, all right. So he had a broken shoulder, and now he's coming home. Think of this. He's coming home from the hospital, and he's riding on the Long Island Expressway, which is the longest parking lot in the world, by the way. He's riding on because it's so crowded. He's riding on the Long Island Expressway, and an 18-wheeler hits the signs that say, to New York City, 10 miles, right? Knocks over a sign. Think of this. He didn't even get hit by the truck. He got hit by a sign. And I call up to make sure he's okay from the previous injury, and the wife says, no, we were taking him home, and what happened is a big truck hit the big sign, the big stanchion, and the sign came down on the road and it hit his car, and now he's really in trouble, and now he's back in the hospital. Well, just like that, there is a certain amount of luck. But the greatest story to me is Gary Player. Gary Player was a golfer, a great golfer, one of the great golfers of all time. And they used to say he's diminutive. He was small. He worked harder than any human being. He worked harder than any other golfer, but he was a small guy. But he hit it good, he hit it far, great golfer. Everybody's heard of Gary Player from South Africa. Still a great guy. He's always kept himself in shape. I saw him the other day, he's like 80 years old. He's phenomenal. He still looks like he did 20 years ago. But Gary Player worked hard. And he was the first time, maybe I've heard it again, but he was the one. The harder I work, the luckier I get. That was Gary Player. He worked so hard. And they'd say to him, he'd win the U.S. Open, and they say, where are you going tonight? I'm going to practice. I mean, he just won a tournament, and he's going to practice. And I have seen people that work really, really hard. They create to a certain extent, because I do believe there could be something with the whole luck thing. But there are people that work hard. Remember that expression, the harder I work, the luckier I get. The harder he worked, he got stronger, longer. He practiced putting, he practiced chipping. The guy was unbelievable. He won 18 majors, senior and regular. He won like 175 tournaments worldwide, which I think is the record. But he was a hard worker. And he used to say, they'd ask, how do you do this? How are you so successful? He says, well, the harder I work, the luckier I get. And I just think it's a great thing for all of the young people out here and the older people. Hey, I'm still working just as hard. I think I work hard. I think I'm working harder in the last 8 months than I've ever worked before in my life. Believe me. But I enjoy it. You have to really work. The harder you work, remember, the harder you work, the luckier you get. So just remember those few little things. Momentum, love what you do, always love what you do, always. One final story on success, because I think it's a great thing. I have a friend who's a guy who was born to a very, very successful Wall Street baron. And the Wall Street baron is a vicious, ruthless, horrible human being, okay? You would not like him for dinner. You'd respect him, but you wouldn't like him. And most of the people in the room would know who he is. One of the big barons of Wall Street. Very, very smart, very vicious, very ruthless, more so than you'd ever see in a movie. You know, they can't make movies about guys like this. And he had a son who's a really nice guy. I have no idea how he produced this son. This son is the nicest human being. And the son was in the father's firm on Wall Street, and the firm is a massive firm. And he was unable to compete really with all the young guns in the firm. And the father sort of understood it, loved his son, but drove his son really terribly. And what happened is the son is at a club. He's a member of a country club out in Westchester. And they were doing a major, major renovation of the clubhouse and the greens and the golf course, a big, big renovation. And people sort of semi-felt sorry for him almost, and they put him in charge. And he was fantastic. He was there at 6 in the morning and 5 in the morning, and he wouldn't leave till 9 in the evening. And the job came in under budget, ahead of schedule. The job turned out to be 10 times better than if you have any questions. I said, he's got to get out of the firm. He's got to get out from those killers. And he wouldn't leave. And I met with him, and I met with him and his wife, and not so long ago. And I said, so what are you going to do? He said, I've got to stay with the firm. I said, you're making a huge mistake. 2 years later, he left the firm. He opened a construction company. He can never do what his father did, but he's so happy. He's doing nicely. He's happy. His family loves him again. They couldn't stand him. He was a miserable, unhappy guy. He could not compete. And he now goes around and renovates buildings and all. He's the happiest guy in the world. And in his own way, his father's too tough to say it, but in his own way, his father is proud of what the son is doing. So I only say, really, love what you do and remember those other little things I told you, okay? So that's enough of success. Do we agree? Do we agree? Is that okay, Mr. Instructors? Okay? I really wanted to go into it.
We will make America great again.